Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and here is my next Steam game called Dinky Guardians. It's a fun co-op multiplayer game where you play as a guardian in a world where there are some tiny defenseless creatures called Dinkys. Here is the quick 40-second trailer, and afterwards I'm going to answer the question that you're probably thinking about and talk about my goals with this game. Okay, so that's my next Steam game. You must explore the world to gather some food and resources to keep the Dinkys alive, build a colony, set up machines to gather resources and feed them, although there are also some zombies, and all they want to do is eat some Dinkys, so you need to keep them safe. Build your defenses, automate resource gathering, and survive. Do all of that while either playing solo or with some friends. Check out the Steam page link in the description and add it to your wishlist. Now let me address the elephant in the room. If you are a regular viewer on this channel, then you might know that I have already announced another Steam game several months ago, Total War Liberation. So it might seem strange why I'm now announcing another Steam game before finishing that one. First of all, the answer is Total War Liberation is not cancelled. I'm still very excited about that game and definitely want to complete it. I think the final game will be really awesome. But while it is not cancelled, it is definitely on a short hiatus. Let me tell you my reasons and my new plan. Hopefully it will be interesting to you as an indie game developer. And this video is also a nice practical example of how volatile indie game development is, and how you must always be ready to adapt, even when you already have quite a lot of experience just like I do. Basically the goal with Total War Liberation was to launch it in the summer of this year, but as you might also know, recently I spent 3 months working on 2 free complete courses. I loved making those, and I'm really happy the response has been really positive. Everyone seems to really enjoy how much I learned from them. However, naturally, as I was working on those 3 courses, I did not have the time to work on Total War Liberation. That game is really complex, it has tons of interesting interconnected systems, so it's not something that I think that I can build in just 2 or 3 months. So because of that, I have to delay my original launch date, possibly to the end of this year or maybe even beyond. Although I really want to publish a Steam game this year, my last one was in 2019, so it's been way too long. Also, one very important thing about how to find success on Steam is you need to make sure you participate in a Steam festival. These are excellent events that happen several times a year where players can play tons of free demos. They are great for finding new players and gathering wishlists to make sure you have a successful launch. You can only participate in one Steam festival, so you should choose the one just before release. Related to that, the next Steam festival is in June, and the way that Steam works is you need to sign up and register for the festival in advance. In this case, the registration deadline for the June festival was in mid-March, so basically by mid-March I had to decide if I was going to launch Total War Liberation around July-August or not. And with delay caused by the free courses, I don't think that I can hit that date. After that, the next Steam festival is in October. If I were to participate in that one, I could then launch the game in a small window in November. Basically, you don't want to launch when there's a Steam sale, so I would have to avoid the Halloween sale and the end of the year sales, which means there's a very short window around that time. So most likely if I did attend the October festival, I would probably only be able to launch the game in January or February. And like I said, I really want to launch a Steam game this year, so I was not happy with that plan. As I was looking at my options, I was thinking what could I possibly do? Again, I had to decide all of this very quickly before the Steam Fest registration date in mid-March. And at that same time, while I was working on the free multiplayer course, I really enjoyed working with the toolset and thinking about multiplayer. So the solution that I came up with was, why don't I make a short and simple multiplayer game, something that I can launch this year and have more time for developing Total War Liberation. And that's exactly what I did. I very quickly got to work on coming up with an interesting design. I wanted something multiplayer, co-op, casual fun, but I didn't want to make something super generic, so I added some colony building, some automation, and some defense elements. I think the design will be pretty fun to play. The game that I can picture in my head is pretty interesting. And again, the goal is make the game short and sweet, make it quickly to launch this year. So I very quickly set up the Steam page. It needed to be public in order to register for the June Steam Festival. I wrote the description, created a new Unity project, Thankfully, I did manage to do all of that on time, even though I was super busy finishing up the multiplayer course. I published the page and did manage to register for the festival. So just like I did when I announced Total World Liberation, here are my goals for this project. Even though this is a shorter project, I still want it to be successful. So I have the same target monthly income goal of around $2,000. If I launch a game in July, that means 4 months of development, so a goal of $8,000 net revenue. This is net, not gross revenue. I covered the math behind that difference in another video. Assuming net revenue is about 40% of gross revenue, that means I need a total of $20,000 gross. Based on this, I can come up with a price to see how many copies I need to hit. Price point is actually really tricky. One very difficult thing about making multiplayer games is you need players to actually play them. So for this, it really helps to sell more copies. At the same time, the general recommendation is you really shouldn't price your games under $10. The game will have a single player component, but still I want to make sure there's enough people playing that someone can play with strangers. So honestly, right now I'm not entirely sure on the price point. Perhaps I'll put it at just $5, maybe $10, I'm really not sure. For this estimate, let's pick a number in the middle, so let's say $7. That means in order to hit the goal, it needs to sell about 3,000 copies. Now that we know this number, we can go to the next step, which is wishlists. They are an excellent predictor of sales. If you're making a game that you want to be successful, you must spend time and effort to gather as many wishlists as you can before launch. So let me take this time to ask you to click the link in the description and add the game to your wishlist. The more wishlists you have, the more Steam promotes your game, even if the people wishlisting aren't really interested in picking up the game at launch. Even without that, more wishlists is always better. But of course, hopefully those wishlists will convert into some sales. The general conversion math is around 20% on week 1. If you're wondering where this number comes from, it's from the 2 excellent game marketing sources that I covered in my marketing video. The newsletter Game Discover Co. and Chris Zukowski from How to Market Your Game. So the math is usually around 20% conversion on week 1, and usually sales for year 1 are 3 to 5 times week 1. So putting all of that together, let's say the goal is 1,000 copies sold on week 1, which would mean 3 to 5,000 copies sold on year 1. With a 20% conversion rate, it means 5,000 wishlists needed. That sounds like a relatively achievable goal, although wishlists also have a sort of soft goal around 10,000, that's usually the amount that you should have. So let's aim for 10k wishlists. If I hit that, I should be able to get 1,000 sales on week 1. Funnily enough, these are actually the exact same goals that I set for Total World Liberation, simply because this game will have a lower price point, but also a shorter dev cycle. It will have less time to gather those wishlists since release is meant to be just 4 months from now, so it will be very tricky to hit 10k, but hopefully the demo is great and the festival really helps. With all the math done, here are all of the main goals. Launch the game in July of 23, launch with 10,000 wishlists, have those wishlists convert into 1,000 week 1 copies sold and 3,000 year 1 copies sold. Do that in order to hit $20,000 in gross revenue and $8,000 in net revenue, which would equal around $2,000 per month development, which would be a decent amount. Now let's split this into 3 scenarios. So this one is the good scenario. Half of these amounts would be the bare minimum scenario, and double would be the great scenario. These are my goals with this game. And this is my current plan. Make this small, short, and sweet game and launch it this year, then leave the more complex game for next year. Just for fun, you can go watch a video announcing Total World Liberation to see how these goals compare with those. Spoiler alert, they are basically exactly the same. And another reason for making this smaller scope project, for Total World Liberation, I really want that game to be very successful. I want the final game to come out really awesome. I think the game idea really does have a lot of potential if I can execute it correctly. In order to ensure that, I really want to make sure I remember everything required for a successful Steam launch. So that's another reason for making this game. I would like to complete a lower stakes project in order to be better prepared for a much bigger project. Oh, and some bonus info for those of you still watching the video. An update on the Total World Liberation wishlist. They are currently a bit above the 5k mark. You can also see the follower amount. They are currently at about 700, which makes for a follower to wishlist ratio of about 8. Usually it's around 10 or more. I guess since I have this channel, there's more people interested in following the game than usual. So that's just some fun stats. And all of this is my new plan. I hope that by being transparent about my plans and how they change over time, I hope this gives you a better view of what it's like to be an indie game developer and how you need to adapt to whatever happens. Probably most of you don't have a YouTube channel that takes time away from your game, but you probably do have a regular job that does pretty much the exact same thing. So hopefully this video helped you see an example for how, while things might not go exactly the way you want them to, you can always adapt. Alright, so now I got to get to work on this game. 4 months isn't a lot of time and I have a lot to do. Stay tuned for some interesting devlogs, and since this is a multiplayer game, I'll also be doing some playtests, so stay tuned for that. Again, please check the link in the description and add the game to your wishlist. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.